Coming up in today's newscast, the ultra-Orthodox enlistment bill passes its first Knesset vote, Israel and Australia slash funds being diverted for Palestinian terror, and could the next Bruce Springsteen or Elvis Costello be learning guitar on an Israeli app? Well, it may not be as unlikely as you think. After a long day of fierce debate, the new bill for ultra-Orthodox conscription into the IDF has just passed in the Knesset by a sizable majority. This is the bill's first reading, meaning it still needs another 2 votes to be passed into law. But ultra-Orthodox MKs are already preparing for that showdown, with one party head promising to bolt from Netanyahu's coalition if this indeed does become the law of the land. Yaakov Litzman of the United Torah Judaism Party has promised to drop out of the coalition if the bill passes its third and final reading. Under such a scenario, this would trigger the likely collapse of the government, spurring snap elections. Despite fierce rejection of the bill from ultra-Orthodox parties, the bill has made strange bedfellows of other parties, bringing together Netanyahu's ruling Likud party with his chief rival Yair Lapid's Yesh Atid party. The bill, if passed, would require ultra-Orthodox communities to meet yearly quotas for sending their youths to serve in the IDF. The quotas gradually increase over the next several years. If they aren't met by at least 95%, then the government would theoretically penalize this by cutting funds to religious yeshivas. This new bill follows last year's ruling by the High Court, which decided that it was unconstitutional to fully exempt the ultra-Orthodox from army service on religious grounds. This community claims that they can only preserve Israel's spiritual security by being excused from military service altogether, but others argue that it's high time Haredim contributed to Israel's national security, in some form anyway, same as every other Israeli citizen. The first reading passed yesterday with the vote of 63 against 39, not including abstentions. Given that margin, many believe that this bill is well on its way to becoming the new law of the land. It seems that Turkish President Erdogan is trying to expand his influence beyond his own country. Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and even the Palestinian Authority have all warned Israeli officials of Turkey's growing and perhaps threatening influence in East Jerusalem. Lately, Islamic Turkish organizations have been sponsoring thousands of trips to East Jerusalem, as well as activities focused on the holy sites. Israel says the situation is being closely monitored. Others, however, say that Israel has yet to actually act. Well, we're turning now to the studio to discuss this is founder and executive director of the Israel Institute for Strategic Studies, Dr. Marv Sherman. Dr. Sherman, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me again.
So, first of all, break it down for us. What exactly is Turkey's potential interest in East Jerusalem?
Well, put it this way, I think what we're seeing is a total unraveling of Israel's policy of trying to accommodate Turkey. Turkey is unequivocally today a hostile nation and should be treated as such.
Sure, but
just imagine if Iranian organizations were trying to grab a foothold in Jerusalem, what we would do. And I think, as I say, Turkey must be treated as a hostile nation, and Israel's policy should reflect that. I think we have to keep a very, very close monitoring on these organizations, because I'm sure none of them have benign intentions for Israel. And we should, in any case of infringement of the law, enforce whatever punitive actions there are.
Right. Now, I will say that, sponsoring tours, stuff like this, it's not against the law.
Well, that's true, but Erdogan is a very cunning and formidable foe. People should look back and see what this man has accomplished in the past. 15 or some years ago, he was in jail. He was banned from Turkish politics. Today, he's totally defanged the Turkish army and has managed to be in a position where he can acquire both advanced Russian arms and NATO arms. This is someone who has to be taken very seriously and not given much leeway in Jerusalem.
Well, I have to ask, is there any possibility that maybe this goes the other way? Like, let's say that we do see more Turkish influence in East Jerusalem. Could that come back somehow to improving Israeli PR in Turkey with the Turkish people?
Well, only if you believe that pigs will be aerodynamic.
So no chance.
So I would say a very little chance at all. I can't see any of this activity being diverted into channels which have any positive effect for Israel, and I think they must be treated as a threat as to Israeli control and of Jerusalem as the capital of the
control as well.
Well, Jordanian for me is a secondary consideration, but as a threat to Jerusalem as the Jewish capital in a sovereign Jewish state. And I think Erdogan is certainly playing a long game, trying to undermine that.
Right, right. Well, this is definitely an interesting situation. We'll have to see where it goes. Dr. Sherman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. All right, the Israeli government has just passed a groundbreaking new law that freezes tax funds being used to pay Palestinian terrorists. Israel collects this tax money on behalf of the Palestinian Authority in accordance with past peace deals, but the government has long accused the PA of funneling this money into martyrs' funds used to pay Palestinians and their families convicted or killed in acts of terror against Israeli citizens. This system of paying terrorists has increasingly turned foreign nations against the Palestinians. Last year alone, the PA openly acknowledged that roughly $330 million was reserved precisely for this purpose. This not only presents a disturbing policy of encouraging and perhaps rewarding terror acts against Israelis, but also diverts funds that could otherwise be used to build much-needed Palestinian infrastructure. Nations all over the world seem to be finally coming to grips with the implications here. In fact, just yesterday, Australia announced that it was cutting all direct aid to the PA out of fears that the money was being used to finance so-called Palestinian martyrs. Earlier this year, the United States passed a similar law, the Taylor Force Act, which slashes U.S. aid that goes to Palestinian terror. Israel's new law freezes this money in an external account, deducting it from tax revenues collected for the Palestinian Authority. The Israeli leaders claim that this money could be transferred to the PA at any time if and when the policy of paying terrorists and their families is finally brought to an end. Arabic media is reporting a surprising new development. Word is that President Abbas's Fatah-led Palestinian Authority is again seriously seeking a unity government with Hamas. It's been nearly a year since those efforts were first announced as underway, efforts that have since all but fizzled out. But new circumstances may compel a deal to actually come together this time around. Well, joining us now is ILTV's Aaron Porras with the details.
Thank you, Brett. And basically, as you said, Abbas is again looking to bring Hamas to the negotiating table and come up with a comprehensive unification plan that can hopefully be implemented as soon as possible.
Okay.
Abbas reportedly wants to preempt any possible divisions between Gaza and the West Bank that the upcoming American peace plan may suggest, though the White House still hasn't released any details, of course. And also, per the original agreement signed last year, once the government is functionally formed, the PA would finally hold elections for both the leadership and the legislature.
Okay, so what you're saying is this unity government, as proposed anyway, has maybe more to do with countering Trump's incoming peace plan than anything else. Would that be correct?
In terms of timing, I'd say that that has a lot to do with it, if these reports are true, of course.
Got it, okay. So now I'll just point out, the obvious thing here. Has anything other than that changed since the negotiations went dead at the end of last year? And that aside, I understand that Abbas hasn't even had a face-to-face with any Hamas leaders about this idea, right? Although he has apparently already asked former Palestinian Prime Minister Salam Fayyad to lead such a unity government. Is that correct?
True. And though Fayyad would need to be confirmed by both Hamas and Fatah, according to the Palestinian Basic Law, he has been appointed and reappointed various times since 2007 without Hamas's consent. And also, basically, none of Abbas's reasons to keep Hamas out of the Palestinian Authority have yet been addressed. Namely, that Abbas fears a government with Hamas wouldn't be accepted by the international community, and that Hamas refuses to demilitarize, which is the big one.
Right.
But what has changed is the pressure exerted on the Palestinian government to do anything. They're being isolated more and more and seemingly being backed into a corner. The United States is withholding hundreds of millions of dollars from the Palestinian Authority through the Taylor Force Act and cuts to UNRWA. The European Union has also reduced funding to the PA for similar reasons, as have Australia now and Israel. Even the Arab Gulf states are sanctioning the PA for cutting ties with the United States and ignoring the White House's peace talks.
Okay, so is it that circumstances are forcing Abbas to play ball here, or is he just doubling down on a position to counter the United States? I mean, that's kind of what it seems like from the outside.
Sure. It's hard to tell at the moment, unfortunately, and it could easily go either way. The talks with Fayyad supposedly come just ahead of another round of talks with Hamas, brokered by Egypt. And also, Fayyad is seen as a popular figure on both sides of the political spectrum. He's seen as apolitical, even.
Interesting.
So he's expected to be confirmed by Hamas this time around.
Wow.
And finally, if Fayyad does return, he will supposedly come with some changes. So, according to Palestinian sources who spoke with Ashaq al-Assad, a Palestinian media source, Fayyad insisted that an Arabic media source, he insisted that he not just be a member of government, but a leader with real sway and decision-making authority. He also reportedly demands, among other things, the revival of the Palestinian Legislative Council, which was disbanded in 2007, and that the various Palestinian groups sign a non-aggression pact. And finally, he wants that the PLO will expand its membership.
Right, so I guess, all these deal points aside, what I will say is that even demands like this, they may sound simple enough on paper, but they're often not so simple when it comes to, executing them as we've seen in the past, in addition to a fierce political rivalry. Both Hamas and the PA have seen, blood spilt over their differences over the past years, and this will be a difficult obstacle, let's say, if a true unity government is really in the cards this time around, and we'll just have to wait and see like always. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Thank you.
The devastation in Syria continues to unload at a staggering pace. At this time, over 270,000 Syrian civilians have been displaced by the gruesome civil war as President Assad's army continues to advance against rebel factions, and that's just in the last 2 weeks. Israeli leaders have beefed up security measures in the north to make sure that this violence does not spread across the border, but Israeli citizens are doing everything that they can to help send aid to those who really need it the most. Israeli communities along Israel's northern border with Syria are collecting toys, clothes, children's games, anything and everything to help alleviate the suffering of thousands of Syrians displaced by this civil war. This is in addition to the IDF's ongoing Operation Good Neighbor, which recently brought in several hundred tons of aid to Syrian villages hit most by the violence. Over the weekend, the army even brought in 6 injured Syrians for medical treatment in Israeli hospitals, including several newly orphaned children. Every day, thousands of Syrians flock to Israel's border hoping for asylum inside the country. Israeli leaders say that they will not allow refugees in at this time, but many Israelis, on the other hand, do feel that given the atrocities seen in Syria over the last 8 years, the government should finally accept refugees at this crucial hour.
אנחנו נמשיך להגן על גבולותינו, אנחנו נסייע הומניטרית ככל יכולתנו, לא נאפשר כניסה לשטחנו, ונדרוש קיום קפדני של הסכמי ההפרדה מ-1974 עם צבא סוריה.
This violence is unfortunately only expected to get worse and worse in the coming days, weeks, perhaps even months. As the Syrian civil war gets deeper into its 8th year, many worry that this may be the most horrific conflict of the modern age, and worse, one with no clear end in sight. Now, in a truly miraculous development, the 12 boys and their soccer coach who've been missing in Thailand for nearly 9 days have just been found alive and uninjured. The group was presumably trapped in a cave after the tide came in during a hiking trip last week, and given this time frame, many feared that the worst had happened when search efforts went nowhere. But it turns out that Israeli tech and rescuers on the ground helped with the search and will now help get them back safe and sound. This is a huge sigh of relief for families and rescue teams who have prayed for the safety of these 12 Thai boys and their soccer coach. Though the group has been successfully located, the rescue efforts, however, are still far from over.
Obviously, the news last night, everybody's very, very happy and very upbeat as a result of hearing that. But we also understand that we have another part of our mission now, which is to assist Royal Thai Navy in getting the children out safely, and also making sure that every person involved in getting the children out is safe as well.
The group remains trapped in a waterlogged cave where the environment is incredibly unstable, a fact made more complicated by the fact that most of the boys can't even swim. For now, the strategy is to wait long enough for the cave to fully drain so that a safe extraction can be done, but this may take days or even weeks to happen. In the meantime, international teams from all over the world have joined the Thai Navy to help the boys however they can. Months of food are being filtered into the cave. Divers are also reportedly teaching the children how to swim in the event that tide waters become unpredictable or rise in the days to come. Other rescuers are trying to pump floodwater out of the inlet to give the boys a more strategic rescue point. Though Israelis from several emergency medical organizations helped lead this effort on the ground, a new Israeli technology may have provided an essential backbone to these efforts. This would be a new cutting-edge communication system made by Max Tech Networks. Though it looks and works much like a walkie-talkie, its unique relay system means that rescuers can communicate in places where line-of-sight talkies simply cannot. The worst is hopefully behind us now, but still, people all over the world are holding their breath for a happy ending to this story. Well, today there are more cybersecurity platforms than we almost know what to do with, but most of them do not offer you the best of the best security without some level of involvement or even sacrifice. Well, the Israeli company Safehouse offers the military-grade cybersecurity that the country is famous for with the push of just one button. And here to describe the one button and more is the founder and CEO of Safehouse, Liad Herman. Liad, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So first, what is Safehouse? What is this platform?
So we created a cloud platform that provides military-grade cybersecurity, and we connect any end device to it. And our first product, Bodyguard, is a one-button app.
Okay.
Once you click that button, you're always secured. You have your personal bodyguard with you online. So whenever you encounter anything malicious, it will just block it immediately.
Gotcha. So I gotta ask, like the one button, that's the name of it, right? Like that's how people find it, right?
Yeah. So the point is that cyber today needs a high involvement and a high understanding. But a lot of employees in big companies, soldiers, we just heard that Hamas hacked Israeli soldiers to take pictures from it.
Right.
They don't understand it. They're not cyber smart, and they don't need to be. What we've created is an easy way for you to click it once, forget all about it, but make sure that in this behind the scenes you are still protected.
Right. Now I want to ask about that because that is a huge thing that just happened.
Yeah.
Hamas using Israeli phones against their own soldiers. So when you say that the app offers military-grade protection, what exactly does that mean?
We've created a SOC, a Security Operations Center, on the cloud that is dedicated to each and every user. It's a personal SOC, if you may. Now, we forget, but this is the smartest computer we ever had in our pocket, going day in, day out from the office or the military base, unprotected. And it's unprotected again because we don't think about it, and we don't need to. We do need something that protects it for us, and that's what Safehouse is for, and that's what Bodyguard's for.
Now, is Safehouse already out in the market? Has it been tested? Like how bulletproof?
Yes, we have about 1,500 users across Israel and India.
Wow.
We do a lot of business in India. There's a prospering relationship at the moment. It's protecting SMEs and big clientele. We have some POCs with banks, motorcycle manufacturers.
Wow.
Yeah.
But with international banks, I mean, those people certainly expect top-of-the-line military-grade protection.
I'm glad to say that we got into the Barclays Accelerator that is operated by Techstars. It's a great program. Very hard to get to, if I might say, but it's helping us pushing it forward, working with Barclays, which is one of the biggest banks in the world, to try and bring it to more people. And again, it took us a year to develop that because we wanted the high-grade or military-grade security, but thinking about the user. Thinking about that one button.
Well, it sounds like you really nailed it, and it sounds like you guys are doing great work.
We try our best.
Yeah, Liat, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Of course. All right, Israel's National Postal Service has, quite frankly, a less than stellar reputation. And if you've ever tried to mail something here before or receive something here before, I may be putting that mildly. Well, now the Israeli government is hoping to give the Postal Service a bit of a makeover in a rather unusual way by selling off roughly 40% of it altogether. This is quite obviously a very big chunk of the postal company. Though the government would retain at least a 60% majority hold, this 40% sale hopefully means new blood can help revive Israel's snail mail services. The National Postal Company has long been criticized by users. In some cases, even something as simple as a postcard can take months to reach its destination. In other cases, that same postcard never actually makes it all the way there. In addition to overall inefficiency, the post offices themselves are the butt of many Israeli jokes, featuring longer than usual waits, lines, and mediocre service. In the past, Israelis didn't have much of an alternative, but with more parcel delivery services every day, the competition has taken a major bite out of the company. That's why the government is hoping new investors can revive the Postal Service and bring back customers. Half of this 40% sale will go to private investors. The other half will be offered as shares on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. This step towards privatization will also hopefully save many postal employee jobs that are currently on the chopping block. The government is hopeful that all sales can be finalized within the next 2 years. Hopefully by then I'll finally get those cookies that my grandma sent. A rugby team in Argentina known as the Jewish Rugby team has just won the country's league championship match for the 4th title in a row. The Buenos Aires-based sports club beat out the Newman club to clinch the gold, and the group itself has a very intriguing Jewish history, beginning with the fact that the team is, as it turns out, not actually Jewish at all. And here with more on this is ILTV's special correspondent on Latin American affairs, Joy Gavijon. So Joy, I'm going to ask maybe an obvious question here. Why is this club known as the Jewish Rugby team if they're not Jewish? What's the deal here?
Thanks, Brett. So that's a good question, actually, because there is only one amateur rugby team in Argentina under the umbrella of a Jewish institution, which is the Hebraica Club. And the team we're talking about is the Hindu Club. But it turns out that the Hindu Club actually has so many Jewish fans that they became famous for it. If you ask anyone about Hindu, they're going to refer to them as the Jewish rugby team. And you can see it and you can feel it during the games when the supporters wave Israeli flags with pride or even dress up as Orthodox Jews.
Okay, now they're called the Hindu Club, but they're not actually Hindu, right?
Yes, they're not. They're not Hindu at all.
Okay. And is it weird to see Israeli flags at games? Like, is that a typical thing?
Well, yeah, that's a typical thing in their games.
Okay.
They even have a chant that they sing during the matches where they say, quote, "We don't have friends, we are black and Jews." But just to be clear, they're not referring to Africans here. In Argentina, black is just a slang.
Right, it's a slang.
Yeah, for people in the lower class or Argentinians with darker skin.
Okay.
It's like a play on the stereotype of aristocratic blonde rugby players.
Gotcha, okay.
But anyway, the team is obviously really proud of this Jewish connection and of this Jewish fan base.
Right.
They say that since the 60s, many Jewish families started to join the club, and the number continued growing until today.
Wow, sure. I mean, we do see that kind of thing all over the world, actually. I mean, look at the Ajax soccer club in Amsterdam, for example, or the Tottenham in England. I mean, both those teams often, they self-identify as Jewish, even though they don't actually have any link to the religion as far as anyone knows.
Exactly, yeah. These teams are some good examples as well. Yeah. You'll see Israeli flags and Jewish chants at those games too. I mean, the Ajax calls itself the Super Jews. There's even a movie about it.
Okay.
But the sad part is that alongside with this, rival fans sometimes use anti-Semitism against those teams. I'm not sure if actually one thing causes the other, but either way, it's obviously awful to see this kind of hate in sports events or anywhere.
Right, sure. I mean, I think we can only hope that sports, continues to build bridges instead of destroying them. But for now, I'm sure the Hindu team is still just celebrating this victory. Okay, last question. In rugby, is it called a touchdown? Or?
Well, actually, I think they call it a try, but it's almost like the same thing as a touchdown.
Got it, if you say so. I don't know. Okay, anyway, Joy, thank you so much and good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, picking up an instrument for the first time can be frustrating no matter what you're trying to learn, but thanks to an Israeli startup, the sweet sound of music is about to get even groovier for both students and teachers alike. The new Newtonera App is helping motivate first-timers to practice and even providing feedback to teachers with nothing but a regular old smartphone. The Tel Aviv-based Newtonera firm is setting a whole new tempo for how students young and old learn their musical instruments. The technology integrates a live algorithm with sheet music, including centuries-old classical scores, and analyzes progress based on pitch, tempo, and of course rhythm. For students, the reward-based system in the app is a fun way that actually seems to push them to practice more. For teachers, the app's analytics helps them pinpoint exactly where the student is progressing or where they need more work. But at the end of the day, it's all about putting in the hours, which is probably where Newtonera shines the brightest.
I love the Newtonera app. I no longer have to bug her or push her or argue about how long she's practiced.
I just play much more.
It's hard work to play every day.
You need to learn to concentrate.
This is a very nice tool that they can use to earn this ability.
Because of the app, she's playing piano longer, and what else could a mother ask for?
I like that I can show stickers to my teacher. It's fun to reach my goal.
My student just practice, yay!
For me, the phone is the battle. Between the parent and the child, there's this wall. But to see the phone actually encourage her to spend more time doing something offline, I think it's a fantastic thing. We're incorporating modern day technology to encourage something as beautiful as creating music.
Another crucial aspect of the app is that it doubles as a musical library, offering over 1,000 musical compositions that teachers can assign students to practice on. That feature will cost you less than $10 a month, but even if you just spring for the basic version of the app, you're still starting off with almost 200 compositions to choose from. Who knows, maybe the next Mozart, Bob Dylan, or Kanye West is learning music for the very first time as we speak using Israeli technology.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by IDC Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Israeli companies are changing the world in pretty amazing ways. The Newtonera company, for example, is pushing kids who want to learn musical instruments, and that's why today's word is lahania, which means to motivate. Okay, so if you want to lahania, or motivate someone else, that's one thing, but to lahania yourself, guys, that's even tougher. And here's a few tricks that I try to use to lahania myself. So first, I make a little to-do list, because every time I cross something off, it really makes me feel mania or motivated. So 2, dress for success, case in point. Number 3, which I take from the Twin Peaks Guide to Living Your Life, every day, once a day, give yourself a present. Doesn't have to be big, could be as simple and small as a cup of good black coffee. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be warm with a light breeze and clear skies. The low will be around 71 or 22 degrees Celsius, and tomorrow you can expect sunny skies and a rise in temperatures to a high of 86 or 30 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.66 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News, and of course on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Brett Allen Smith. Thank you for watching.